All right, and you guys should see the recording policy coming up at the top if you want to check that out, or you can hit dismiss, and I will turn it over to you, Caitlin.
All right, well, welcome everybody to our Microsoft Teams collaboration virtual meeting training. My name is Caitlin Dietz, and I am with the GTM Research Reserve down in Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida. And training with me today is Jessica McIntosh, who is also down in Florida, but she's a little bit further south at the Rookery Bay National Estuarine Research Reserve in Naples. So today we're hopefully going to share with you guys some of the tips and tricks that we have learned while navigating through the Microsoft Teams platform. We are not experts. We are very much self-taught when it comes to Microsoft Teams, and we will try our best to share with you guys everything that we have learned and to answer your questions. But just know that we might not know all of the answers, and we might sometimes also refer back to you guys if any of you also have practice in Microsoft Teams. We are using Microsoft Teams through our state agency, which is the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. And we have found that Microsoft Teams is really helpful for long-term collaborative efforts. It's a really great project management and keeping track of what's going on different projects and being able to easily tap into somebody, remind them of an action item, look at their schedule, and have meetings and document what's happening in those meetings. So we've really enjoyed using it. And so Jessica, I don't know if you want to share anything else about what you think about Microsoft Teams before we get started.
Sure, and I'll say hi to everybody as well. You'll hear from me a little bit later on. Caitlin's going to kind of lead the main part at the beginning. But I want to say that I'm newer to Teams than Caitlin, so she's been using it a little bit longer. I've only been using it since the pandemic started, and our agency has really pushed it out as kind of our main way to communicate with video conference calls, especially within our agency. I use Zoom a lot, and I think that both platforms have a place. I see Zoom as kind of my place to go if I'm doing a meeting with a lot of outside partners, people I'm going to maybe have a once-off conversation with, or people that aren't as familiar with using video conferencing because it's a little bit more intuitive. But in putting together this work for Teams and working with it a little bit with my agency, I think it does have a lot of strengths. And really, like Caitlin was saying, it is that collaborative functions, working with people regularly over a longer term kind of project. There's a lot of strengths to the program, and I'm excited to share some of that stuff with you guys today.
Awesome. So we are going to go ahead and I'll share with you guys some of the virtual basic controls that we have today. So if you wiggle your mouse at the bottom of our video screens, a little black bar should pop up, or yours might be a different color. And that will give you the option to change your video, your audio, to open the chat box, raise your hand, and also opt for closed captioning for meetings. So today you are more than welcome to have your video on. Jessica and I want this to be casual. We want this to be open. So feel free to keep it on. But we also understand if you are trying to conserve bandwidth on your end, you are welcome to keep that off. For your microphone, just make sure you keep it off for the time that you're not speaking, just to help us keep the background noise down and make sure that we have a good recording of today. We are going to be interacting with our chat box today. So your chat box should look like a little communication bubble. And so if you want to go ahead, you are welcome to open that up, and that should pop up on the right side of your screen. And feel free to type anything into the chat box. If you have a question for us, you're welcome to type that question in there. Or if you have a resource that you have found helpful in Microsoft Teams, feel free to share that with the group as well. Depending on if you are using the web browser Microsoft Teams or the desktop app Microsoft Teams, you may or may not have the raise hand icon. That's the little hand that's right there. We have found that there are some functions that work on the desktop app and others that don't, and same for the web browser. So the best way to make sure that you have all of the functionality is to download the desktop app. You don't need to do that today if you don't have it already. We'll engage with you however we can at whatever capacity you have right now. And then you are also able to open up the closed captioning for meetings. So if your audio isn't working, or if it's better for you to read through the text, feel free to open that up. Microsoft Teams does do a pretty good job at the closed captioning. Just know that not any of the closed captioning services are perfect, but it's always an alternative for you there. And if at any point in today you need to leave the meeting, there is a big red hang up button. Feel free to exit out of the meeting. We are recording, so if you miss anything, we'll be sending out that recording at a later date. All right, and we're going to go ahead and, oh, there's a slide for the closed captioning. Forgot that we had done that. So if you use those three little ellipses, that's where you can find your closed captioning. That's also where you can change out your background if you're on a desktop app. So if you'd like to blur your background like Jessica and I have on our videos, you're welcome to do that there. Or you can go to the beach. I think that there's also somewhere you can go out into outer space or to the mountains, wherever you'd like. So as we go through today, like I said, we'd like to be casual, but just make sure that you are respectful of others. Please make sure that you are using that mute feature. Ask questions, engage in the chat box, and go ahead and turn off all of your email and all of the other things that you have going on in the background. Hopefully we'll make this fun and it'll be a good hour with everybody today. So one of the really fun features about Microsoft Teams is the chat box, and they have emojis and they have GIFs and they have stickers. So to help learn a little bit more about you guys today, we'd like for you to open up your chat box with um, the little communication icon. And at the bottom, you should have a smiley face, a square that says GIF, and then a little sticky note with a smiley face. We'd like for you to either make a sticky note or share an emoji or share a GIF that reflects how you are feeling today or shares a little bit something about you, and share with us your name as well and where you are tuning in from. So Jessica and I made some fun ones. And Jessica's little graphic is going a little bit crazy. And mine is a shark that's crying with a backlog of paperwork right now. So Grace, if you kind of wiggle your mouse at the bottom of our video right now, you should have a little communication box. Ooh, and
Nice.
Jenny says she only has the text and none of the other icons. Jenny, are you in the web browser or the app?
Oh, I see Bree has said she only has the text format option. She's in the web browser.
Oh, and Jenny is in the app and she only has that. Oh no, guys, I'm sorry. We thought that this would be a fun activity.
Well, I'll put one in the chat so you can see all the fun stuff you can make.
Yeah. So I will go ahead and use this opportunity to share that most of you probably have your Microsoft account through your representing agencies or organizations. And through that representing agency or organization, they have the ability, your IT has the ability to turn on and turn off certain functions and features. So I wonder if maybe this is a function or feature that not everybody has turned on.
Yeah.
Well, still go ahead and introduce yourself and where you're tuning in from. And if you could choose an emoji that's out there that you've seen that represents how you feel right now, describe what that emoji is for us.
It's funny. Bruce says they don't want us to have fun-looking chats. I think at first our agency had this locked, and it's one of the more recent things they've opened up, which is fun, and nobody has abused it yet. So you can always share that with your agency.
Yeah, it does look like Michelle is able to make her font colorful. So that's cool, Michelle. I don't know if I can do that.
That is neat. On her Mac. Yeah, I like too that Michelle also said that her agency in North Carolina said that they might learn about things on Teams that they don't have through their agency. So at least we're in the same boat that we have a lot of features that we know exist, but we don't have access to. So we will show you some things that we figured out to kind of work around some of those in some cases, like the whiteboard. I'll also mention for the recording feature that it's not something I had access to, but I requested it and justified it, so I got access to it. So knowing about it might be the first step to requesting for your agency to let you use it.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point, Jessica. Well, then I appreciate you guys indulging us and still kind of giving us an idea of what your emoji would be. And they are fun. However, I do have to say they can be very distracting when you're having a staff meeting, because we have several emojis that come through during staff meetings and you just get way involved in the chat box.
That is true. With great power comes great responsibility.
Absolutely.
But
All
it's
right.
neat, Caitlin, to see all the people from different places. Like I see we have quite a few folks from North Carolina. We've got people from Texas, from Minnesota's coastal program in Duluth. We were there a few years ago. We got Kathy from Washington, Vanessa from New Jersey. Let's see, Hudson River. So, I mean, people from all coast around the US, which is pretty neat.
Yeah. Several of our NER partners and some folks who are partners of our NER partners and NOAA partners. Yes, Sarah, there is a way to change your notifications. And I will type that into the chat box. While I go ahead and let Jessica share a little bit more on how to set up our meetings, like the one that we have today.
And so I'm going to show you guys next how to schedule meetings and to kind of set things up from the beginning. Now that you know some about the controls and a little bit more about what to do as an attendee, in case you need to schedule or set up a meeting, I'm going to show you that. And Shannon, I did see that you had your hand up. If you had a quick question, you could ask that before we transition to this next part, or we'll have time at the end for questions as well.
Just real quick about the recording, you were talking about asking for permission in order to be able to use that feature. So is that not a standard feature that comes with the software, or was that kind of your organization put a limit on whether you could record or not?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think the standard thing is that recording comes with the software. And the way that our agency has set it up is they have to basically give us permission to use like just about everything besides doing a video call directly with another person from our agency. So my understanding is it's standard across the software, but if you're with a big organization where you have admins in a central location, you'll probably have to ask them to turn that on for you. It's pretty easy to check though, just by kind of going to your control bar, clicking on that ellipses. Well, actually I take that back because you guys didn't set up the meeting, but you could set up a fake meeting and just see if you have the permission there, is kind of what Caitlin and I did. It wasn't, so then we asked permission.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. All right, so then I'm going to do a screen share for the part of showing you how to schedule meetings. And Caitlin, do you want to turn off your video real quick so we don't get sucked into the matrix when I do a screen share?
Absolutely.
Okay, and we're gonna go over, but the screen share is pretty easy on that control bar. They call it a share tray. And I'm going to share my desktop, which I usually do not recommend, but because I'm going to be showing you a couple of different windows, it's going to be the easiest way. So when I do that, it minimizes Teams. So I'm going to open that back up. And for those of you guys that are on the web browser, this is what the app looks like, and that's what we're going to be modeling. But there are lots of different ways for you to schedule meetings. You can do it if you have Outlook in there. You can do it on your 360 account in the web browser. This is just the way that I found that gives you the most functions on Teams. So we are here on the app. Over on the left-hand side of this, you can see there's a couple of different icons for different things within Teams to check out. So the calendar is where you want to go to schedule a new meeting. So then in the top right, you're going to see this new meeting button. I could drop down, and I'll just kind of quickly say that Teams has meetings that you can schedule, and for those, you can have up to 250 attendees. So the capacity is really large, at least on our license we're on. And they also have this other option for live events. So that is something that we don't have a lot of experience with. I'm going to go ahead and click on schedule meeting, but know that the live event option is there. If you wanted to have a larger audience, you can have up to 10,000 attendees with that live option, and then you can assign people to be presenters, and the attendees would really just be watching. So it's more like a webinar kind of platform if you use that live function. I know it's there, haven't used it, but there's lots of information about it if that's something that you need, and Teams is the platform you have. So once I click on a new meeting, and it looks pretty similar if you do this in Outlook, there's going to be lots of things that pop up here. I would say at the beginning, check your time zone and make sure you're in the correct time zone. It's going to automatically adjust that for other people that you're inviting. If they are on a Microsoft, I think it interfaces with Google pretty well as well to adjust the time to be appropriate for their time zone. But that is one thing when you first get in, make sure it has your right time zone. And I'm going to make a fake meeting. That would be the title. Just to kind of show you guys a little bit more of the functionality. I'm going to add Caitlin, and you'll see that a whole list of names pop up. These are all people from within my state agency, so they're all in my like network, so I can pull them up really easily, but I can just type in any email address that I want to add in, and it will invite outside partners as well. And that might be something, if you have issues with it, again, you might need to ask your agency. When they first rolled out Teams for us, we couldn't work with outside partners. So if you see that you can't do that, you might need to find your admin and ask them for the permission. But for this, we're going to make this fake meeting. I've added Caitlin. We've got the time. You can do recurring meetings if you wanted to set this up to be like a weekly standing meeting that you have about something. You can add a channel. That again is something else that our agency has control over and we can't edit. And Caitlin, I think we'll talk a little bit later about teams and channels. It's not something we use a lot because you'll see I really only have this one channel, and then there's other options, but our agency is so large that for the work Caitlin and I use, we usually don't use that. You can add a location, and then you could type in whatever details you want to add, an agenda, things you're going to talk about. So once I create that just basic kind of meeting, I'll send. It'll generate an email with a link to it that Caitlin will receive in her email, like you guys did for today. So one thing that I recently learned is, again, if you're in that app and you go to that calendar event that you've created, that meeting, you can click on that and it's going to take you into this additional screen in case you need to change anything. But you can also, if this was a recurring meeting, I could go in and see what the chat history was. I'd be able to look at any files that had been shared in that conversation. And the thing I'm going to show you now is this meeting options. And again, I'm learning more and more about technology. One thing I've learned kind of recently is if this screen is kind of smaller, because I'm just working off my laptop at home, I don't have a second screen. Sometimes those extra options will collapse down and you just need to click on those ellipses to get to our meeting options, which is what we're going to look at next. And you should see then my web browser opening up for that fake meeting that I just created. Hopefully my internet is still on. It's going slow. What I want to show you in here with the options is that this is where you can kind of change like the role or the permissions that people have within your meeting. So if you were going to have a large meeting, maybe like we do today with outside partners, and you're not really sure how comfortable people are going to be with the platform or know how to use all the functions. This also goes along with security. If you're afraid of like Zoom bombing or people coming into the meeting you don't want there, you can change your settings for who's going to bypass the lobby. So you can select if just everybody's going to come straight into the meeting, if people within your organization are going to come straight into the meeting, or if you only want you to bypass the lobby, that would really restrict it. So you would have to manually let everybody in that you want in. So if you're worried about people coming in, you might want to set that to say only I can bypass the lobby, and then I'm going to manually allow people in. And then the other option I want to highlight here is who can present. So you can set that one up ahead of time if you want only for yourself to be able to screen share specific people, maybe just people within your organization. Again, that's going to kind of help with some security and avoiding kind of the Zoom bombing threat that nobody wants to fall under. So I think that is what I wanted to show you guys with the screen share. So I stopped that, and that's just kind of the basic idea of how to schedule a meeting, change some of those options, and set it up so that people are getting there and having the right permissions that you want. I'm also going to talk next about the different roles that you can have in a meeting, and for this, Caitlin, I would like it if you would share that meeting roles slide. And we have a link to this in resources that we're going to share with you a little bit later in the training and afterwards in the email as well. But there are different roles, and this is a table from Microsoft that tells you kind of the functionality that each role has. So today, Caitlin is the organizer. She also made me a presenter. So I have the permissions to like mute people, to remove participants, to let people in from the lobby. But if you are just an attendee, then you're not going to have all those permissions. So just know that you can go in and you can change those settings to add a little bit more security and really more tightly control who can do what in your meetings. If you're meeting with people from outside your organization and having larger meetings, that capability is there. And Caitlin, will you go to the next slide? So if you are the organizer, your controls will look a little bit different than they do today. So we had this screenshot just to show you guys, if you are the organizer and you open up the participant panel, you'll have this additional little ellipses at the top right-hand corner. And there you'll be able to get some extra options to like download a participant list, or you can hover over the participants and you can mute or remove them. And I like to just kind of keep in mind, because I'm mainly using Teams with people within my agency right now, is that the default when I set up a Teams meeting is that everybody is a presenter. So everybody has permission to mute or pin or kind of move people around in the meeting. So that's nice, because you can say like, hey, if anybody hears background noise, just mute somebody. I haven't seen it be abused yet. Again, in teams, it seems like you're usually working more with people you're familiar with. So I think they can have a little bit more freedom in the controls. And then Caitlin, will you go to the next slide? And in that ellipses, that's where you can manage the permissions of the participants, or you can download an attendance list. I just wanted to point this out because both Caitlin and I do lots of programs through virtual platforms right now. So one thing in Zoom that I always look for is the attendance list, so I can count kind of how many people came or who was there. And Zoom kind of has the function through this. So the meeting organizer can download the attendance list, but you have to do it while you're in the meeting and while the participants are in the meeting. So like Caitlin right now is going to pull the participant list so we know who is here today. It's just a little bit funky, I think, because you can't do it once the event is over, once the meeting's over. You can look at the tracking and see who said yes or no, but you'll have to actually download the attendance list live if you want to record that. And then I think I just have one more control that I was going to highlight, Caitlin. Yeah, the recording. And I said at the beginning, you know, especially for anybody that's here from FDEP, you will have to request the permission from your agency to do the recording. But once I got that done, it was super easy. It just shows up in my control bar. You hit that ellipses, start recording. And one cool thing that I found out, and I guess we're going to test because this is my first time really recording anything, is that it is automatically recording to the cloud. And once we stop the recording, there's going to be a link that's generated in the chat, and it's going to be available for 7 days on Microsoft Stream. So there's all these Microsoft products we're figuring out as well. But you'll be able to view it for 7 days automatically. So as the organizer, I don't need to do anything extra to share that link out. You're going to get it in the chat, and we're going to see how that goes. I think it might only automatically give access to people within my agency. But if anybody's trying to view that and has an issue, let me know, and I should be able to go in and add permissions. So again, like if Caitlin and I are in the same agency, say we have a standing meeting about marketing every week, and oh, Caitlin had to miss it this week. Well, if we hit record, she would be able to go in her Teams app, pull it up even though she wasn't at the meeting, and within that 7-day window, click on that link and view the recording without any extra action being taken. So I think that is pretty handy if you do need to record meetings, kind of a nice feature. So that is kind of the stuff that I was going to cover about just the basics of how to set up and run a meeting. And what Caitlin and I have planned for the rest of the time is talking more about the collaborative features. We wanted to give you guys just a basic taste of the controls and here's how you set up a meeting before we jumped into some of the features that we wanted to highlight that we think are nice for collaboration and opening up that time for you guys to ask questions as well. So I wasn't watching the chat. Caitlin, are we good, or is there anything we need to address question-wise?
I have been trying to answer as we go along, but do you want to take a second? Oh, we did have one. Is there a telephone number option with Teams meeting as well as those with low bandwidth? I have not seen a phone number that you can associate with the video meeting. I do know that you can directly call somebody in Teams, and if you just want to have a phone conversation without the video, you are able to do that, but I haven't seen an option within the permissions that we have to have like a conference line tied with it.
Yeah, and I feel like I saw something the other day that was about a call-in option, but again, I don't know if that's our agency not allowing it or if it's maybe something they're rolling out. But right now, we don't use a call-in option, which again could be a consideration when you're thinking about which platform to use.
Absolutely.
Okay, so yeah, Bruce is saying, yeah, you need to have the admin for your agency arrange the phone option, which, you know, is good to know because it's like with the recording, if you know in advance you need that function, what we found with our agency is as long as you can justify that, they'll give you that permission. So thanks, Bruce. All right. Well, let's move on then to talking about how we can collaborate with this platform now that we know kind of how to get in and how to use some of the basic controls like the chat and muting yourself and all those kind of more basic things. So I guess I'll say, like Caitlin said at the beginning, is we are not Teams experts. So some of the stuff we thought, let's try it, and it'll be a learning experience for all of us. So we definitely want to highlight the file sharing within Teams. And this is something that I think is really nice, and I have used it with people within my agency, and it has gone very smoothly. So I can testify that if you're doing this within your agency, within a channel, within a team that exists, it works pretty flawlessly. And we're going to test it out today with all of you guys to see how it works when we're working with people from different agencies and with guests. So I did share a file before the meeting, so hopefully you got that email. I am also going to reshare it in the chat, so don't worry about digging that email up. But before I do that, because then you're all going to be trying to log in and we're going to be troubleshooting, I just wanted to talk a little bit about how you might use this. So you can share Word documents. You know, Caitlin and I have been sharing the PowerPoint and Word documents in preparing to do this training, which has been really nice. And we can both get in and edit those live. And that way we don't have a bunch of different versions of the same document floating around with track changes and trying to merge them and all that mess. So there's just one document. We can both get on it live and both edit it. Very similar to Google Docs. Now, a nice thing about Teams that I'm finding, because like I said, I'm very much more comfortable with Zoom, use Zoom a lot more. And what we do a lot is we use Zoom with a Google Doc, and then you've got to look in all these different places and keep track of things. And it's confusing when you're working on lots of different projects. So the nice thing about Teams is that once I share this file in our chat, you would be able to go back to that calendar invite, or if you're in the app, you can look down your chat and you'll be able to find the file like all within this one place, within this one event. So it's really nice for keeping track of things over time. And if you use SharePoint or OneDrive to kind of organize your files, it integrates perfectly with all those Microsoft products because this is all Microsoft Suite. So with that being said about how nice it is, I think we'll go ahead and try to all get into the same document. So I just popped in the chat and it says it's sending. You should see a Word document pop up with a little ellipses next to it. If you click on that ... the ellipses, it's going to give you some different options. I would recommend that you click open in browser, and that's going to open the Word document in your web browser. You can open it with the desktop app. That'll open it in Word, or you can edit it directly in Teams if you have the app. I just have found that I like to open it in the browser, and that seems to me like the easiest way to get into it. So if you click on that, you should be able to get in and write things into that document because I gave you guys all permission with the emails you provided before the training started. So that being said, I'm sure it won't all go smoothly. So if anybody's having issues, feel free to let us know and we can try to troubleshoot that. But if you're in the document that I just shared, I have a table there for you to type in if there's any questions that you have, if there's anything you want to know about Teams. We have this list of collaborative functions up. If there are any of those things that you really want to make sure that we hit on in the rest of the time we have together, type it in there. Oh, and my internet's being really slow, but it did just open. So I see there's quite a few people in there. You'll notice you can see the initials of people that are typing, so you can see who did what. And so you guys that are in there, type away, add your thoughts about what you would like to learn. And Caitlin, I think I see some stuff coming in about maybe some people.
Yeah, it looks like Jenny and Shannon aren't able to get in. So I'm going to try I'm going to try to get you guys in.
And I did at the bottom of this document, and if you can't get in, we're going to send the document in an email anyways. But at the bottom of the document, I have links to Microsoft Help articles, and so it tells you about like how to share a file in case you want to know how to do this, rather than us walking you through, because this isn't necessarily about Teams. It's a little bit more about like SharePoint and some of the other Microsoft features. And Caitlin, I can try as well to add.
I just added Jenny, I think. So Jenny, if you want to give it a try. Oh, there's a lot of folks who are having a hard time getting in.
So it's how our agency. Oh, so Jenny is saying that maybe her email is not an actual email. It does, it links up with your Microsoft account that would be associated with your email address. So again, this like isn't a function that I would use with a bunch of stakeholders or a big group, but it seems to work fairly well usually in my experience with agency folks because they are so Microsoft focused, if they have Microsoft focus. But maybe like Shannon, if you're with NOAA, then you might not have a Microsoft account associated with your email. Just says we're not part of your agency. Yeah, and so the way that our agency has it set up is anybody within my agency, I can share a link with them and I don't need to add them and they can get in. But let me, or maybe Caitlin, since you're screen sharing, do you have the document open so the folks that can't get in can see what it looks like?
Absolutely. And folks who can't get in, if you want to, in the chat box, add what you want to know about Microsoft Teams, other than how to make sure things like this don't happen when you're doing this. Feel free to add those in the chat box and I will put those into this document.
Yeah, like I said, we're kind of curious to see how this goes. So there are some people from outside our agency that I could see are in there. Like Caitlin, if you hover over some of those initials. So like
we
Michelle.
Have a Gmail. Yes, and whiteboard would be a workaround for those organizations who have the whiteboard option. Unfortunately, we do not. So this was our workaround for that.
So cool. Well, I see some good kinds of questions coming in through this, and we'll definitely look through those and see what we can get to in the time we have together. But I mean, you can at least see and maybe understand some of the limitations possibly of using this function in Teams. But like I said at the beginning, if you're doing this with a group you regularly work with, and maybe we only had, 6 of you guys in here, we could really troubleshoot, and maybe you'd have to sign up for a Microsoft account. But I do think that we would be able to figure out how to get everybody in here if we were working more long term and really needed this, rather than just using it to kind of demonstrate the functionality. And shoot, I just forgot what I was going to say is, I think you can see we're using this in a way that, yes, a whiteboard could have been used. We're just having you write down questions and brainstorm ideas. But right now, with my reserve, we're working on our management plan, which is a 300-page document that has lots of regulations. We have lots of different agencies that we need to have review and comment on it. And we're doing that because it's my agency reviewing it within SharePoint. And we had a Teams meeting. We were able to share it. We were all able to go into the same document, add comments, and edit it live. And it all just lives in that one place, which has been really nice for me. And I think I saw a question about kind of like, what's the benefit of this versus maybe Google Drive? And I use Google Drive, I use Google Docs. I think those are really great platforms to collaborate with. The one thing that I found with this management plan, though, is because ultimately we're sending a Word document to the people that are formatting this 300-page legal document that's going to be our management plan. When I put it into Google Docs and then took it back out, a lot of the formatting got really messy. And going between those two platforms, they do interface nicely together, but it's limited, especially when you start getting like tables and graphs and landscape versus portrait view and all those things. So we're using SharePoint now that we are on this large, really complex document that has to be formatted in a very specific way. So I think that that formatting has really been an advantage for me. Plus probably some added security maybe is what people would say. As you can see, it's really strict who can get in and see stuff.
Yeah, not everybody is able to even see it when you share the link with them. But yeah, definitely some great questions, and we will hopefully hit on them in the next 20 minutes or so. And if not, I will also try to type into the spreadsheet what a response would be for them.
Yeah. So, Caitlin, I'm just looking through these because what we can do next is address some of these questions. And I think maybe if we see any that hit on some of those collaborative functions, maybe we can address those first. And then we should have plenty of time for questions because that's pretty much the end of the like, here is the prepared content that we have. We wanted to make sure we had a lot of time to get to the questions that you guys had. So I'm looking through for any collaborative function.
I see a using team or channels teams for collaboration and file sharing across offices. I'll go ahead and do that really quickly if you'd like.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And then maybe we could go into having a meeting and all of the different functions about how to have a successful meeting.
Yeah.
All right. I am going to stop sharing our shared document screen. And Jessica, if you don't mind turning off your camera, I will share my Teams screen with everybody. All right. So the question of using Teams channels and Teams teams, kind of funny. But a team is essentially a collection of people who all work together. And then within your team, you could have different channels. So within our organization, we don't necessarily use the capacity of the teams and channels to its fullest extent. But that doesn't mean that you can't. You definitely can. So as you can see on the screen, to get to your teams, you'd look for the collaborative people, and then that'll pull up your core team. So I am right now a part of 2 teams within my agency, our Office of Resilience and Coastal Protection Communications team, and then our Office of Resilience and Coastal Protection. And then within those teams, there are some different channels. So if, for example, for those of you that are NER folks, if I had my entire coastal training program team within my NER as a team, I could have all of our different programming as channels, which would keep a nice streamline of different posts or files that we wanted to share. We could also create new tabs at the top if we wanted to have within our, call this invasive species, within our invasive species, if we wanted to have products or trainings or work days, we can have all of those tabs tracked, and we'd be able to keep a really great record of everything. So that way we could say, oh, what did we do the last meeting? We could refer back to what we had. Or if you're not sure what the next thing to do is, or if you want to tag somebody else in a meeting. I've actually tagged a couple of you in our meeting chat today to call attention to what you're asking somebody to do. You can do that in here as well. You are able to join or create teams, which is really cool. So if you're joining a team, you need to have a team code, but you can also manage your team, add more members. If you're done with a team, you can leave a team, or you can share those links with teams. You can also hide your teams. You can hide your chats as well. However, to unhide them, it's not as easy as it is in Microsoft Excel. To unhide them, you have to go up to the search bar and you have to have everybody who was involved in that team or those keywords that your team had used typed into here to unhide it. So it's not as easy to bring everybody back from the hidden world. But that's one way that you can, organize your team that you're working with, organize your work plan. Within our office that we work in, this is just some of the organization. Most of my organization that I work within happens within our meeting chats, and we'll name different chats based on what is happening. And that's really the way that I've organized it. But that was also just a way of organizing based on necessity and having no real training on teams and kind of just jumping in head first and figuring it out as we went along. So if you are a gold personality and really like the organization, I'd recommend going through the teams and channels process. Any questions about teams or channels? It's kind of a quick overview.
And if nobody has a question about that, I've been looking through what people put into the shared document and the chat. So if the teams and channels make sense, I will pull something else out of those questions. I guess just a quick, and I want to make sure that we answer this verbally, not just in the document, is there was a question, there's a couple of questions about breakout rooms. So no, Teams does not have breakout rooms. Caitlin says not yet. They are putting new stuff out all the time, so.
Yeah, like I know Google Meet just added a breakout room option, so you never know.
And does Teams have a polling function was another question. So there is not a poll that's integrated within Teams, but in the last 5 minutes, we are going to do a poll to get you guys to evaluate the workshop. So we'll show you kind of a workaround to that. And kind of like for the whiteboard, we didn't have access to the whiteboard, so we tried to do the shared document with limited success.
Yeah, sorry about that, everybody.
And I see there's kind of a couple of questions, a little group of them, about maybe how does Teams compare with other platforms, specifically with Zoom. And I kind of spoke a little bit to that at the beginning, but Caitlin, do you have any thoughts on where you would choose to use Teams versus Zoom?
So we really do find Teams helpful within our staff meetings. So at our reserve with our staff of 30 something, Teams has really been helpful. We also use it on specific projects that, like you said earlier, Jessica, are projects that we know are going to be meeting regularly. That has been helpful. I do have to say, before our state agency started using Microsoft Teams, I had the ability to use it through a science collaborative proposal that a local university was working on. And I was able to have a guest access, much like what you guys have today to access this meeting, into a university account, which was really nice. And we were able to organize all of the efforts for that science collaborative, whether it was pre-proposal, images, data. That was very helpful. Zoom is great if you are wanting to engage with a lot of people and you're not wanting to really keep track of the succession of a project. But please do keep in mind, and I think that we're finding this, agencies and organizations all have their own privacies when it comes to virtual platforms, and not everybody that you are working with, they might not all have access to Zoom. So before you start a project with somebody, I would do a quick hand raise to see what platforms are available and then try to learn as much as you can about that platform. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, and I kind of typed up a very brief summary of that in that shared document. I made a new column for responses, so I could kind of see which questions we haven't gotten to as well. We still got a few more minutes, so I'll make sure, Caitlin, we have time for that survey at the end. I saw a question about, can participants without Microsoft Teams accounts access the files, the shared documents, etc.? So they don't need to have a Teams account. They don't even need to have a paid Microsoft account. You can create a guest free Microsoft account. So again, if I really was going to be working on a project with a group of people where we wanted to, sorry, I hit my microphone mute, and we wanted to use Teams as kind of the way we were all going to get together, I might invest that time with people that don't have a Microsoft account through their agency and walk them through how to set up a guest account, and then they would be able to access Teams. They'd be able to participate in things that you added them to. They'd be able to get to the documents. It's just a little bit of an extra step. It's not like, and maybe this is where Google is a little bit better. Google will just let in a guest that doesn't have a Google account associated with them. You can set up the permissions that way. The Microsoft documents do not let you do that. There's at least the way my permissions are set, I can't do that. Again, I think it's a security thing. I think they really want to make sure that just whoever is not getting into these things and maybe, purposely causing damage. And there was one other question, and I don't know who this came from, that says that they would like to know how to schedule and run a meeting with their staff. They tried it and it didn't work. And maybe what I'll offer is, Caitlin, if we want to do the poll now, I can stick around after that 3 o'clock end time. And if anybody wants to kind of, talk to me specifically about what they had happen, I could try to work you through whatever issues.
Yeah, that sounds great. So as we did share, Microsoft Teams does not have a polling function at this time. However, I'm sure that their support team would love feedback on additional features, and we were talking about it earlier. I think with everyone working virtually, there are a lot of virtual platforms that are trying to up their game and provide all of the different services that they can. But one workaround that we have found to still poll everybody is a Mentimeter or a similar platform that you can poll folks through. So I am actually we're going to demonstrate it right now. And I am going to share with you guys a link to a Mentimeter. And I also should be sharing my screen. So Mentimeter, you can have a free account with Mentimeter. You can also have paid accounts. Your free accounts are obviously limited to just a couple of questions and a couple of responses, but it's perfect for staff meetings or quick things like this. So if you go ahead and click on that link. I see some folks are already responding to the question. So we'll watch those questions come in. But what's really neat about Mentimeter is that you can get a quick idea of how your workshop or training or meeting went, or if you have a decision to make within your meeting space, quickly set up a poll. They also, if you want to use the GIFs and the stickers, Mentimeter will let you do it with your free account, so you don't need to worry about whether or not you have the functions or the permissions to do that. But this is a good alternative since you can't really set up a poll necessarily like in Zoom. Hopefully that helps get a little bit of some creative ideas going.
And I see that Kathy wrote down that she understands that the breakout rooms is the most requested feature for Teams, so that's their highest priority. So maybe we'll be rolling that out soon.
Yeah, that would be great. Thanks, Kathy, for that insight. All right. Well, I will go ahead and you are welcome to continue providing your feedback, but I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And Jessica, if you want to demo anything else or help answer any other questions that folks might have, I'll turn it on over to you.
Cool. I think there's one more question that came in that, Caitlin, maybe you have an idea of. Sarah Fernald asked if you can run your agency work team alongside a family team through a personal Outlook account to coordinate professional and personal schedules through Teams. So probably like how in the Outlook app, you can have those two different accounts show up. I think you can, because I have two different professional accounts that merge and they both show up.
Yeah, I think you should be able to as well. Just depends on what your agency permissions are. So I would get with your IT.
And it might mean that your whole agency has access to your personal calendar. So
Make sure you keep it secret.
Locked.
Private accounts.
But yeah, I don't know if that answers Sarah's question. And we are like pretty much at 3 o'clock now. So I think we can go ahead and wrap up. And if anybody wanted to stick around, I'll stick around for a couple of minutes. If you did have kind of some more specific questions about like I scheduled something, it doesn't work, I'm willing to hang around for a minute and try to help you guys troubleshoot that. But hopefully this gave you kind of a little bit of basic information about how to use Teams, how to get in and participate, how to set up a meeting, some of the different functions that are available, and some of the workarounds that Caitlin and I have been able to figure out to use it. And I think really the take-home message is that Teams is useful if you're going to be working on a team, right? It really does match up with the name, and be working together on projects over kind of a longer time scale. It has a lot of really neat functionalities, a lot of great ways to integrate working on shared documents and tracking kind of meeting notes and all these things that are really useful. But if you're looking for more of a once-off, we just want to have videos and talk to everybody, maybe another platform is better for you. So that's kind of what I think you should take away from it. And I will hang around for a few minutes, but want to thank you all for being here today and, you know, participating and at least trying to do fun gifts and stuff like that. And of course, thanks Caitlin, because she taught me a lot of stuff about Teams as we were putting this together.
Well, thank you guys. And for those of you who were not able to access that shared document, we do have some resources at the bottom of it. So we'll make sure that we get that downloaded as a regular Word document or as a PDF and send that to all of the email addresses that you guys did register with. So you'll still have that information. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks everybody.